Matt, we have a really interesting fight coming up here this week. It's this week. I almost said this weekend out of habit. This is a Wednesday night card coming at you from Fight Island, the second card in as many from Abu Dhabi. Matt, really interesting fight between Taila Santos coming into the UFC 15-0. She loses her debut by split decision to Mauro Romero Barella. Come back to that one in a bit. She was booked in a couple of different fights at tail end of last year, forced out of them. Ariane Carnelossi, Ashley Evans Smith, Jillian Robertson, and that card, of course, got canceled. So she comes in against Molly McCann, who's a known commodity in the UFC. We've seen her competing against some really good competition. She's won her last three over Priscilla Cachoeira, Ariane Lipski, Diana Belbizia, who we already talked about. Some of those names, a lot of fun to say. Nonetheless, Molly McCann is a tough fighter to have a good fight against. This one at flyweight, here's a really telling sign. We talked about it with Diana Belbizia, the former, opponent, the fact that it's tough to find good competition on the regional scene, especially in some of these lower weight classes for the women. And Belbizia was able to do that. Molly McCann has really been able to do that. And she's taken on some of the toughest tests in the division. I'm going to look at Taila Santos' record, and this is where...
You don't have to.
This is the thing. She's 15-0 coming into the UFC. The odds in this fight are par right now, which I find absolutely insane. If you're putting money down, it makes no sense. So, Estefania Almeida, she beats on Contender Series 2018 by decision. They sign her. Let's look at her fight before that. Liza Coimbra, 0-1, 0-1, 3-1. Pro debut, 0-1. Pro debut, 0-1, 1-3-1, 2-1. You can have great fights and get first round knockout, first round submission, first round knockout again and again and again. But against lower competition, it doesn't tell me anything. This is like a fighter that's coming in with an amateur record of 50-3. It means nothing when you become a pro against the upper tier competition. And then as you move on in your pro career, it's different if Taila Santos was like a Gennady Golovkin or Vasily Lomachenko, but she's not. So in this fight against Molly McCann, if Taila Santos is going to have any success, what does she need to do?
First of all, you need to never mention Taila Santos in the same sentence as like a Gennady Golovkin, but it does make sense. You hate to see padded records because it is such a boxing thing. Because in MMA, losses really don't matter. You win or you learn, the John Kavanagh saying. And it is true. You can have not terrible record, but look at Jorge Masvidal. He's 35-13. He's fighting for a world title. He's quite possibly the most famous MMA fighter in the world right now. So I don't think records really matter as much in MMA. And to see her just run over all these women who are, again, either making the pro debut or 1, 2, 4 fights into their pro careers, it's really unfortunate. With Molly McCann, she was always fighting good competition and at least giving good fighters hard looks. And in her last few fights, she's really resorted back to sprawl and brawl. It might be a general or generous way of saying it, but she does fight in that way. Really defend takedowns, try to land those big bombs. Not the biggest for the division, very short compared to a lot of these women who she's fighting, but she's really good at closing that range. She throws those big long hooks kind of in an Andy Ruiz sense, kind of really good at closing the distance with her hands. So I do think Molly McCann has a huge path to victory in this because she's not going to get finished in that first round like a lot of other Santos' opponents, kind of wilted under the pressure, if you will, in that first round. But Molly McCann is going to stay there round after round after round and definitely be able to eke out a decision.
And we've seen the trend with Mauro Romero Barella lately, and you see it with Molly McCann. So let's pick out the loss. It was 2 years ago to Jillian Robertson. She gets submitted. Well, look at Jillian Robertson so far in the UFC. When she faces the utmost competition, it hasn't gone all that great, but we saw it recently against Courtney Casey. She can submit pretty well anybody in this flyweight division unless you're an elite grappler or wrestler. So out of Molly McCann, I think pressure's key. She's tougher, and this is such a played-out term. She's tougher than a $2 steak. She really is. She's tougher than a frozen steak at the Dollar Tree that you buy for 50 cents. She's incredibly tough. You could bust up her orbital when everybody thought it was broken, and it wasn't, but you can bust her up and she'll still continue to move forward and pressure. And I think there's so many things to like in this fight for McCann. I think it's another opportunity to get a win. I don't think Santos is maybe up to the same level of some of the competition that McCann has faced in the past. And she's faced bigger fighters as well. She's going to be at a 6-inch reach disadvantage in this one, giving up 2 inches of height. I don't think that makes a big difference. Overwhelming majority out of the few fans we have so far in Tapology to 375 votes, 87% going with McCann. I opened it up because before this video, went through, watched the tape, looked at all the last fights, what have you, and then looked at the odds just before we came on air. I can't believe how close they are. This is as big of a lock of the night as I've called. Mind you, the last big lock of the night I called was Fabrizio Verdum over Alexei Oleinik. So
Yikes.
take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I honestly do feel very confident in McCann getting the win here.
I do. Like you said, lock of the night, without a doubt. Because Molly McCann, she's had less fights, but she's had more experience by far out of the two. She's had 3-round fights. She's had hard fights that she's had to come back from. So, yeah, and I really favor in every single area of this one. So Molly McCann by decision all day.
Matt, both going with the Liverpudlian to get the win. Really looking forward to this card. A lot of great prospects on there as well. And hey, if Taila Santos gets the win, big prospect, good record, move forward. Really looking forward to this one. You're not going to miss our extended look at Dan, the man, Ige, taking on a really tough out, and Calvin Kattar. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say,
let's get into it.